Hello to all you rad people out there from whatever rad time you're watching at whatever rad place. You know the drill. I'm Ryan.
And I'm David.
And together that makes us R-A-D, rad.
R-A-D, rad. What up, bro? So, Ryan, I have to say, like, you know, sitting in quarantine these days, it's got me thinking about the nostalgic trips that one has experienced through life, you know, whether that is, yeah, the travel bug. Yeah. Or as the English often say, I've got itchy feet at the moment. That's one of my favorite idioms right there. I've got itchy feet right now. Like, oh man, they got to go somewhere. They got to go. And simply going to the market's not enough these days. I'll tell you that. No.
I know it.
But,
well,
you know.
You could still plan out some amazing trips in your mind, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
I'm definitely thinking of all the places that I'd like to go if I could. And, you know, hopefully,
Dude, I jump on an imaginary plane in my head, and the places that my imagination takes me, oh my goodness, I end up at the beach most of the time, I'll tell you that. But, you know, I'll tell you one thing, Ryan. I am honored by the guest that we have today. Not only is she an old alumni of Liceo Taller, you know, but she's also, funny enough, a travel journalist. And that's something that really sparked my interest when I heard about it. I'm like, ooh, that's very interesting career, no doubt. So without further ado, Angela.
Welcome.
So, hey, everybody. Hey, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Hey, it's a pleasure, you know. I mean, hey, we haven't had an alumni on the show, like, ever. So you're the first, and we're hoping you're not the last. We would welcome many other alumni to join us. Absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I mean, I'm the first alumni in the podcast, and I was actually the first alumni to graduate from the school, because even before the prom, my family and we went on a journey, so I couldn't be on the graduation itself. I had to be, like, they had to make me a special ceremony, so I was the first one to graduate from the school ever. Wow. So that's a cool story.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
You're the only one who has that story, right?
Yeah.
The only first one. Nice.
Very cool.
And there it goes. I missed my graduation because I was on a journey, and now I'm a travel journalist. So you see, trips have been in my life forever.
Yeah. I think that what we would call serendipity, no doubt. How things just magically align with oneself. Exactly. Very cool. But you know, just for our viewers, can you maybe explain what a travel journalist does, actually? Because it's fascinating, just the name of it, actually. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course. So let's see. The best way to describe it will be a journalist. Of course, you have to graduate first a degree in journalist or communication. So what they teach us is that the idea is that you describe where you are, what you are feeling, where you are traveling with all your senses, that you talk to people and try to listen to them. So basically what a travel journalist is, I can't remember how would that be, sorry for my English, sometimes it freezes. So yeah, it's to be immersed in the trip, to be a part of the trip, not only go there and take pictures, but to really be in the place and enjoy it the best way you can. That's what a travel journalist does.
Okay, all right, very cool. But when you say to be in a place and to be part of that place, by that, do you mean like immersed within a small area, or still, like, you know, tiptoeing on the sidelines, if you will, of looking at it from as an outsider? Do you immerse, or do you look at it from an outsider perspective?
Yeah, it depends on the trip you want to make. For example, I have done both of the options you are proposing. When I did the master, we actually had to create a final project in a destination that was assigned to us, and I got Morocco, Fez. It's an imperial city. So we decided to create this book that has stories. So for this trip, we had to be immersed in the culture, because we had to listen to the people, to listen to families, listen to people and be part of their lives in order to write good stories.
No, definitely. I mean, you know,
So
listening
this
is
was,
all about listening to understand rather than listening to respond, right? Like you have to understand
and,
rather than have a response. Hmm.
and sometimes you probably won't understand what they are like their lives, but at least you are listening to them. That's an important thing because we forget sometimes to just listen. People
Yeah.
just want to be heard.
Yeah.
So in this case, for example, we went there and they only spoke French, some of course Arabic. We spoke English, Spanish, but it was hard to communicate.
Yeah.
So what we did was just sat there, try to stay there, just to listen to them. And somehow we found out a way to communicate. And for them to tell us their story, it was a really long and very productive thing for us to do. Like we went there for almost 15 days
Mm.
and we just stay there with the families. So that could be one thing. But another thing is that you just go to a place and look it from the see it from the outside, as you said. So,
Yeah.
for example, I went to Mexico. I have it here on this notebook for December 2018,
Mhm.
and I wasn't there to talk with any family, but I was just trying to look how they live, how they act, how they move around the city. So it was really cool, and you can do it both ways. The idea is that you just try to connect with the place you are and try to see it in a different way, as I already said.
No, it's fascinating, actually. Yeah. Yeah. But Ryan, I think you had something on your mind there. Hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking what you were describing in both modes, I guess. It sounds a lot like, from what I know, and again, this isn't my field of study, but it sounds a lot like anthropology. Um,
Mm.
in that,
Yeah.
you know, an anthropologist needs to do kind of both those things. They need to find a way to sort of get into the community that they're studying and somehow become a part. But at the same time that you're a part of the community, you also want to maintain your objectivity, right? You're still a person who's outside and you're describing it for other people who are outside. So I don't know, had you ever maybe kind of made that connection with anthropology, or did you get trained in any anthropological methods in your education?
Yeah, during my degree, the community journalist degree, I had some classes from anthropology classes, and I really liked it. But in that moment, I didn't knew I was going to study
Mhm.
this that I am already loving. And then in the master, we also had some anthropology classes, and that way I figured out that what I'm most passionate about is listen to people and tell their stories. And that, as you say, Ryan, is a mix between those two things, journalism, anthropology, and then traveling is just the way to get there, you know?
Mhm.
And it doesn't even mean that I have to travel in a plane. I can do that here in my city. In Pereira, we can do that so many ways. I remember, Ryan, that you did a paper on the aguacate guy.
Yeah, yeah, a bit of
That's travel
urban
journalism also.
anthropology in a.
But that can also be described as travel journalism because you are studying your city in a different way. You are listening to your city.
Yeah.
So that's also a way of doing what I do and what I love to do.
Yeah. Actually, it struck a chord with me definitely because it feels like a little something. So in that vein, I had a follow-up question. Then you mentioned your notebook, and I know for myself in the activities that I do, notebooks are like my best friends. In fact, I did some extensive traveling on bicycle, and I have 5 notebooks that I wrote in during that bicycle trip. I wrote a lot, and and those are treasures to me. I mean, those things are I brought them from the United States. I have them here. I don't think I would ever go anywhere too far without my notebooks because there's such a personal story
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
I, I would imagine maybe you have like, do you use a special notebook or something for every project that you do? And what's your relationship with notebooks? I have a very strong relationship with notebooks.
That's funny that you asked that, because so I have 51 notebooks filled since 2016 that I've been traveling like a travel journalist. I have one, like for example, I have one from the trip I made to Mexico. And last year that I was in Sweden working as an au pair, but also traveling, I have 10 notebooks, because I not only write, but I also try to collect papers, try to draw. I mix a lot of techniques in my notebooks, because I think, as Ryan said, is the best way to keep your feelings, your memories. Sometimes we just take pictures, but then we forget about the pictures, or we don't even print them. So what I do in my notebooks is try to mix all of those things, and I have an agenda of it in the end. So I call them in Spanish will be cuadernos de recuerdos, memory notebooks. And in the end, that's what they are, your memory in a paper.
That you bring that up, because what I've been doing lately during the quarantine is, before I go to bed, I write down in my, well, I'm not going to share the title of that, but anyway, I tend to write down some stuff like before I go to bed. And the truth is, like, I think if I were to look at the, 11 pages that I have in there, I'm pretty sure 90% of it is absolute baloney. But that's okay, because 10% is absolute gold, So like sometimes by just putting ideas from our heads into paper, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this as well, we go through a stage of like, man, this is what I'm thinking now, this is what I'm thinking now, but then all of a sudden there's a spark. And somewhere within all those notes, there's a spark of, being genuine to yourself, or having something that you truly believe, boom, that appears. I don't know, maybe, do you guys have that experience having, yeah.
I'd love to hear Angela's comment.
Yeah, completely.
And then I'd love to make my own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, completely. For example, I've been filling some quarantine notebooks also. I already filled up one completely out of the quarantine, because I'm living with my family and we are 6. So we're writing whatever joke we have, whatever recipe we made during the day. Of course, thoughts. I've been also writing songs that I've been singing during this quarantine, because then in the future, that's what the idea is, that we remember those things, not only the bad things, the stress, the homework, for example. The idea is that we remember those cool things that came out of the quarantine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And for you, Ryan?
I think it's really interesting, because I think that has a lot to do with our relationship to writing. And I think talking as people who enjoy writing is very different, because I think most people's relationship with writing, and especially like most students, right? They write to give that piece of writing to somebody else, right? And so, first of all, everything that they write needs to be very useful and very, in the best shape possible. But when you write for yourself, that's the best thing, is that you can feel, that's the only time where you can actually feel free to write, I think. I think it's unfortunate, and I'm gonna make an appeal to the audience now. Audience, if you do not write for yourself, and if you only ever spend time writing for some sort of very specific reason, like doing a homework assignment, then I think you're missing the best part about writing. Because I think I only, I only came to enjoy writing when I started writing for myself, and when I started keeping those journals of my trips and things like that. I think that's something that your profession could really teach everybody. I think everybody should write frequently, but for themselves, not just for homework assignments.
Yeah,
exactly. And when you write for yourself, when you write a diary, it doesn't exactly have to be like, oh, today I felt this, or oh, I'm so in love with this person. No, it can be just what I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling sad. Okay, and then those things that you write, nobody's telling you that it has to be perfect. As Ryan said, it's just for yourself. And
Yeah.
there's nothing that is wrong. There's no one is going to be there to qualify, to put a note on that.
Give it a grade.
So that's really great. And I've been loving that because sometimes you write things that you don't believe have potential, but then out of a sudden you think, okay, if I organize this, it can become a good story. Or maybe some people can relate to this. And that's really great that you can do, even if you don't have a career in journalism.
Yeah.
You can just write, and everybody can write.
Yeah.
You know, on the creative side of writing as well, so I'm taking at the moment in my free time in the evenings, a master class that a friend gave me to David Lynch on how to do screenwriting. And one of the things I watched in an episode like 2 or 3 days ago was every now and then you just have to sit down, daydream, and write down your daydreams, you know. So that's how I'm finishing off my evenings these days. I sit on a hammock, I'm daydreaming, and then all of a sudden
About the beach?
Yeah, exactly. About the beach, about, you know, just letting your imagination run wild, you know, like not putting a chain and ball on it, just letting it free. Let it go wherever it wants. Yeah. I've had some, you know, I shared a business idea of the eye glove the other day on this, and that was one of the daydreams that I had. Yeah.
What I've also been doing is I try to write my dreams, like during the night. If I have a really strong dream, when I'm not super sleepy, I try to wake up and write it down. And then the other day that I read it, it's like, oh God, I have what's going on in my dreams? But then out of that, something can happen. Something can be a story.
Yeah.
So that's great. Whatever you want to write, you can do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And also another thing, sorry, Ryan, another thing about my career is that you have to read a lot. And as we said with the writing, reading has to be something that you enjoy, not that you do it just because you were assigned to do it. So for example, we read a lot, and reading is an excellent way to write also. Because let's say for 10 pages you read, you write 1 page. So you have to keep reading, of course, the things that interest you the most, but also things in other stuff. And that way you can also take a lot of ideas out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Now, Angela, have you always enjoyed writing, or was there a moment where that sort of like clicked? Or, I mean, why did you choose this field of study and then eventually this profession? Was it always in you, or is it something that developed over time?
No, I think I've always liked it, but I'm gonna, how do I explain this? When I was transferred to the school, I had a very cool Spanish teacher. He's called Harold. He was a university teacher. But he was teaching us Spanish, so he started telling us about chronicles, yeah. So this kind of writing, I started liking it, but I had no idea I was going to end up in this. Then when I was going to graduate, I was between journalism and astronomy. I can't imagine myself now with physics. It will be horrible. And then I started journalism. I started working with a magazine, and I knew that writing was my thing. And then I found out, organizing my notebooks, that when in 2007, my family and we made a trip to the United States. And I wrote a notebook of the trip. In 2007, I was only 14 years old, and I started writing back then. So I found out that writing has been always there, but it was 5 years ago that I started doing it because I really like it, and I started writing with tips and recommendations. with knowledge. You know what I mean now.
Yeah.
But writing has always been there.
Very
Cool.
interesting.
And where do you publish most of your writing then? I mean, you've mentioned some magazines and things. What else?
Yeah,
What's publishing like anyway?
it's hard because journalism now it's very consumed by politics and by the big companies' interests. But it's hard, but it's not impossible. For example, I work with this touristic magazine and I publish there some text. Thanks to the magazine, I met a lot of touristic magazines, so I started trying to publish with them. Not every time, it was not possible every time. And since 2016, I've been trying to create a blog. That's actually my name on social media is Piquete de Ida, because that's the name of my blog, piquetedeida.co, co. You know, so I've been trying to publish, but if you want to create a thing like that, your own place to publish, you have to be very careful, very persistent, very constant, and sometimes you just forget about it because then you are busy with other things. So for now, that's my plan, my idea. But then a lot of things have been coming through. But for now, that's the place where I'm publishing, and the idea is that while I publish in the blog, I also start sending text to touristic magazines or literature magazines also, because that's a place where you can publish a lot of text.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I made myself clear. I don't even understand me sometimes because that's my plan, but sometimes it just, oh God, it's hard. But I know that in 8 or 10 years, I see myself in a successful place because I have a lot of contacts and people that I know that are already successful, and that's their income. I mean, they have their travel journalists who created their blogs, and 10 years after they started, that's their job. That's what gives them the money to live.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's gonna be me, but it's gonna take a while.
Sure.
It's an interesting topic because I think when it comes down to writing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the one necessary ingredient of writing is persistence. You know, I can be writing for the last 3 days stuff in my journal right now for just during the quarantine, just to keep my mind busy. But when the quarantine's done, am I going to still be doing it? You know, I'd like to, but writing is a thing that just requires, as you've said, persistence. You know, I think the same can be argued for reading with that matter. It's that, I mean, reading, I love reading, but for me, writing, I've been okay with writing, but I haven't been persistent and a daily writer per se, but I would like to be, definitely.
And the thing also with writing is that if you want to publish, it's not that you're gonna write one page and you publish that. No, because you have to go back, check all all the things that are there. Sometimes you are used to writing the same way as you speak. So I will write, if I say in Spanish pues, then I write pues, and pues you can't put it in a text that it's going to be published. So writing for a blog, for a magazine, you have to write it 3 or 4 times in order for it to be elegant, will be the word, correct for publishing. So that's a big thing to do. And yeah, you have to be persistent, but it's not impossible. What I want to tell the kids is that it's not impossible. You can do it. You just have to be into it and really careful and really persistent.
Persistent.
And having something like a notebook where you write, your daily thoughts and things like that is a great way to, I guess, cultivate that habit, right? Because it's not something that, like, you know, David was saying, it doesn't just happen tomorrow that you're writing 3 pages a day. Something that comes with time and with practice. And
exactly. And you can, for example, the kids, you can't be stressed out because you didn't write one day. For example, Isabella, since she sees me writing every day, she tries to, and then some days she comes out, oh yeah, Lilith, I didn't do this day. It doesn't matter. You just have to start doing it. If one day you're not doing it, well, you try to do it the other day. You just have to try to start creating the habit, even if you don't write every day. But for example, for me now, if I have one day where I don't write, it's, oh God, what happened that I missed? Because then all the good things that are happening now are in my notebook.
You know, I got to ask actually something, because I recently pulled out like one of my old notebooks that I was writing in when I was living in London, and when I was putting all this strange stuff. How many times have you guys, because you guys also, you know, known to write in notebooks, have looked back through your notes or something that you've written and been like, oh my goodness, that idea or this, what I put right here is gold. What I felt like right here is gold. Like, this makes so much sense. And like, you're kind of getting a grasp of introspection, of understanding yourself or your place in many ways. Do you guys often look through your books in the past, or?
It's not only, you don't know, you not only find gold ideas, but you also find stupid things that happened to you or that you did, and in that moment you thought were important. So for example, I told you about the notebook that I wrote in 2007. I mean, I was 14 and I was reading it like, today we had lunch at this marvelous place, with some descriptions that I'm like, oh God, what was I thinking? So it's really funny because, as you said, David, it's introspection, and you can understand so many things of yourself by reading texts that you wrote even 1 year ago. I was in Sweden exactly 1 year ago, and if I go back and read that, it will be, whoa, this was me 1 year ago. You change so much in a year, and you can't even picture it until you try to read those things.
Oh, geez, I just looked at one of these pages, and it's like, you know, I pull out a quick little sentence, and to be oneself is to be under hallucination. Like, I have no idea what, it's like, you know what? Whatever you thought that day, and you put it down on paper, and then I can reflect on it today and be like, David, what were you thinking right there? But it's nice, you know, to go back.
What was happening?
To be oneself is to hallucinate. Huh? Oh God, well, yeah, that's me 2 years ago. Let's see if I'm any different. I don't know.
But
yeah.
I think one of the interesting things is, in my experience, and I had a really specific experience, which is reading yourself. I had started a notebook, and I had written in it for about 3 or 4 months. And then our car was broken into, and I had the notebook in a backpack, and the backpack was stolen. So I lost the notebook. But I remember specifically with that notebook, I had been revisiting my own pages often. Like I was reading myself maybe more than I normally do. And typically I like to write poetry or something that looks like or has the shape of poetry. And so one of the first exercises that I did after that happened was like, I was like, well, I remember some of the ideas that I had in that notebook, some of the poems that I had started constructing. I don't want to lose them. And so I'm going to construct whatever I have from memory and try and rebuild my poems that were stolen. And I called it Rewriting Stolen Poems. And it was a really interesting exercise. And then I started to realize things about myself, like especially my own sort of personal language. I think that I realized from that more than anything that like your language is a very personal thing. And so the words that I use frequently, repeatedly, have a very specific meaning for me. And I was able to sort of, like I said, I guess, understand who I am in a different way. Like kind of like where we started out, almost like being an anthropologist of myself. Like I studied myself and I learned things about myself. It was really cool.
And by reading yourself, as you're saying, you can also figure out what's important to you. You won't, I mean, probably the people that know me will believe, but in the 3 notebooks I filled up when I was, all the many notebooks I filled up when I was in Sweden, I started the day I had breakfast, like that. Today I had a delicious breakfast. So by reading it, but like going back, breakfast is very important to me. Why is that? Why do I enjoy it so much? Why do I write some days what I had for breakfast, and why don't I write them every day? You know what I mean, more or less, is that, as you said, you find out things that are important to you that you won't think about them usually.
Oh, right.
So yeah, that's funny when you read all the things from the notebooks. Also, as you said, words that you repeat a lot. And for example, I usually try to put a lot of pictures, and a lot of pictures in my notebooks, and they are very colorful because I love colors. So you will see all my notebooks filled with markers, stickers, colors, and that's me.
At the end of the day, it's your notebook, you know. It's it's you in the book. That's it, you know. So whatever, even if it's like I'm going to draw a stick figure on this page or a little comic book by flicking through the pages, that's you at the end of the day. And that's the nice thing about a notebook. I have lots of question marks in my notebook, and I'm pretty sure it's because I didn't know what I was writing. I was just like, question mark, question mark. I go, it's okay, that's me. I question things, you know. Totally fine, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we started talking about travel journalism, and then we continue to the writing and reading.
If there's one thing this channel is good at, we know how to take tangents, honestly, to a whole nother level. But as you're drawing us back onto the linear path that we were on, travel journalism. Can you tell us a place that you really enjoyed that many people have maybe not heard of? Morocco, you've mentioned. Sweden, you briefly mentioned. Where else have you been?
Yeah, so, like my family has always liked to travel a lot. So together we have been to Australia, we went to Switzerland, to Spain, Italy. And since 2017 that I went to Spain to study the master, I lived in Barcelona. I went to Portugal. I went to Morocco with the master friends. And I tried, since in Europe it's really easy to travel from country to country. So I visited Budapest, Praga, Amsterdam, Belgium. I went to the north part of Spain. Then in 2018, I came back to Colombia, and I traveled a lot here in Colombia. I went to Jardín, Huila, Bogotá. I travel a lot here in the coffee culture and landscape because it's where we live and where I used to work with the magazine. I ended my year in Mexico. I traveling alone by myself. I had some friends there, but I was traveling by myself. I came back here and I met a friend that was coming from Spain. We went to San Jose del Guaviare. That's like it was a new place for me, but also we went to Medellin, to Cartagena. I've been to San Andres so a lot of times. And last year I went to Sweden to work as an au pair, as we already said. And I was living in a city called Falun, 3 hours away from Stockholm. I visited Stockholm, then I went to Germany to spend summer with the family. And then I traveled again with my family. We went to Copenhagen. I'm very grateful and I'm very fortunate because my family really likes to travel. So we have done it a lot of times, and just by myself, as I already said, some places. But I would really like, as you said, I'm really loving it here in the quarantine because I start thinking, okay, where am I going next? And for example, I was reading some news last night about Italy. paying some of the trip for you to go travel to that country after the quarantine. Then I told my mom and my dad, what if I go there after the quarantine is over? And then they're like, okay, yeah, you just came back. You need to save some money. Well, do I? For real? No, but of course I do. I do need to save some money. But my mind is always traveling. I want to go to Greece, to Thailand, and to India. Those are like my top 3 destinations.
Fantastic,
To
fantastic.
go
You know,
next.
I enjoy traveling myself, and I have to say the one thing it does is it gives you a broader way of looking at things, honestly. And for yourself, you know, you gave a very descriptive scenario of traveling through Europe, right? I find that with Europe, for example, as a location, you have in such a small geographical distance, you have such a quick change in language, in culture, and in customs. Like it will just
Yeah.
shift like that, you know. I mean, Paris to Amsterdam is 4 hours on a train, less than, sorry. So you already go through 2 countries on that trip, and yet you see this incredible shift in terms of the country, honestly. So for you, what is adapting like in many ways in these geographical areas that you find yourself in?
I always say that when you travel, you are the one who has to adapt because you are the visitor.
Yeah.
Of course, in some places we have it easier because the culture, even though it's different, it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
You know, for example, for me to travel from here to Spain, you start seeing a lot of, even though we are kind of similar, you start seeing a lot of different things. For example, my friends, they had lunch at 4 p.m. and they had dinner at 10 p.m. For me, that was what I couldn't manage. I
Hey, 2
couldn't wait.
p.m. is early. I remember them at 1 a.m. sometimes, and then it's like, oh, well, okay, the uncles are taking me out for dinner. Oh, wait, no, I got to wait 5 hours. Okay, yeah, that's great.
No, yeah, no. I mean, those small things make the difference. Is you are in a completely new world. But then, for example, you travel from Barcelona to Morocco. It's just 1 hour by airplane.
Yeah.
But you are traveling not only one different country, but one different continent. And you see, oh my God, the cultural difference there is incredible. Since we were going to try and
Was it Marrakesh that you were in, or where was it in?
face,
Oh,
face,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. Since we were going to create the book, we knew that we have to go with open minds, but also try to be how do I say this? Try to be in the same level they are. It's not that we are in like higher or no, but of course it's completely different. So for example, as a tourist, if you go to Morocco, since it's so hot during summer, you will wear shorts or normal t-shirts. I don't know, but we wanted to create a bond with the families. So we knew we had to bring long pants, sweaters like this. Even if it was summer, we couldn't show practically any skin, because we wanted them to see us as their equals, even though of course in the face you can see we are not from there. But it was really cool because we were traveling with an open mind, and we were there 16 days. So in the end, we were part of the little place we were in. That is not little, but it's the Medina, the old city in Fez. We were there. We were walking all day long from end to start of the Medina. And in the end, the people were like, oh, you're still here. Because usually those places, people travel 2-3 days maximum. We were there 15, 16 days. So the last days, everybody was like, hey, look, the guys from Spain, Colombian girl, you're still here. So that's really cool, because if you travel with an open mind, if you travel a lot of days to one place and you try to be part of it, that can become an amazing experience.
Yeah. You know, I think definitely, you know, open mind, that's an ingredient, but the one that I want to throw in as an ingredient would be empathy in many ways. You know, you have to be empathetic of the way that things are, and just you know, don't fight, accept, right? In many ways. Yeah.
And it's not, as we said in the beginning, sometimes you don't even accept what they are doing because for you it goes against what you believe in.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that their way of living and believing. So why would you start a fight with someone's beliefs when you're in a completely different culture? Why would you start a fight with the spicy food in Mexico when that's the way they have eaten forever, even though we don't eat like that? But then you just have to adapt. I remember my first day in Mexico, I went to eat tacos in the street and I wanted the green sauce, thinking it was guacamole. But no, it was the the spiciest sauce ever. I almost cried in the street. But there was no point in me arguing or getting mad at the people because that's how they eat. That's how they know it. I had to learn from it. And I remember that from that day on, I was in Mexico for 20 days, more or less, and I saw that green sauce and I laughed at myself because those things are the experiences that you keep and you save forever.
Definitely. Right. Very good.
So you have to stop. You have to stop me because I can tell a lot of stories. So you will have to stop me whenever it's time.
Well, I don't know how we're doing on time, I guess, but I definitely wanted to ask at least one more question, which is related to where you're going there. Just how do you then, if you're going to write a story about somebody, or if you're doing some sort of, if you have a specific journalistic task in mind, how do you approach people that you're going to write about or research about, and how do you let them know, I guess, what you're doing, and sort of, I imagine that you kind of want permission. You're not going to do it against people's wills. So what's the technique there, I guess?
Yeah, so what we used, I'm gonna go back to Morocco because it's the easiest example and the example that you can see in the book I already showed you. We went there and the first story we met a guy who sold herbs, yeah, those, I don't know the name of it in English, aromas, hierbas.
Like potpourri?
Yeah.
Fragrances.
Fragrances, exactly. Natural fragrances. So we sat with him in his office as tourists, and he started telling us about the different things he had and because we also ask a lot of questions, like a tourist, but with no interest at all, just ask questions. He started telling us about the things, blah, 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 blah. And when we saw that there was a little space, okay, we're journalists, can we take you some pictures, please? We want we want to have you here in our cameras. Yeah, well, of course, and they like that. They like to be heard and to be seen. And after we take the pictures, we told him, of course, in this case, we are writing a book. We want to tell your story. Can we come back? It's not like you're going to ask him about his family on your first visit. So in the beginning, it's just tell us about what you're doing, what you usually tell the people. Let us take you some pictures and can we come back? And that's what led us to stay with him, not stay exactly, but to spend with him a lot of days, because then he knew that we were going to write a story. He saw me writing, he saw us taking pictures of him, and he started opening his heart up for us. So he told us about a lot of stuff, and it was really incredible for us to create that bond with him in 16 days. Of course, that doesn't happen every time. With every person, it doesn't happen like that. But what I've seen works for me is smiling. Smiling you can just communicate by smiling.
Yeah.
With kids, with grown-ups, with grandpas. Oops, please, something happened here. But yeah, just a smile can be.
One of the most famous books that I've ever known is How to Win Friends by Dale Carnegie. And there's a chapter in there, and it's all about smiling. No matter what, You put on a smile and it's like people are accepting. If anything, they're
Yeah.
accepting of like, you know, whatever it is that you come to the table with. If you put on a nice smile, you know, they are accepting and
Yeah.
understanding. Absolutely. Yeah.
But then, yeah, so for example, with him, it was like that. I also did a text about the Plaza de Mercado, the market in Santa Rosa.
Mhm.
So I went around the market, taking pictures and asking people, what are you selling? Normal, what is this? And then I sat down in one of the restaurants, and that woman started talking to me like she has known me forever. So I was like, aha, there's a story here. And I, yeah, okay, my name is Angela, I live here, blah, blah, blah. Can I come back? Yes, of course. And then I came back, and I was prepared because I knew she was going to tell me her life practically. So then I started, but of course you also have to know when to write and when to look, because if you are with someone and they start telling you the story and you're just looking at your notebook, that's disrespectful.
Right.
So you have to mix it up. Look at the people, hear them out, let them know you're paying attention. Sometimes go write something and then go back to the person, because that's really important. Non-verbal communication is really important in being a journalist or being a good person even. Because just a looking at each other's eyes, a smile, as we said, that's really important.
It opens doors. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially
Well,
in today's times of distancing, I think
Yeah.
it's even nicer just to see a smiling face.
I
No,
mean, there's not much of a smile with the masks on going on, but I would imagine that there's a smile when I catch someone in the supermarket giving me the eye, and I'm just like,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's gonna be really important after the quarantine.
Yeah.
Of course, people are going to be scared. People probably won't be able to feel the same way outside. But if we try to be relaxed and to give some smiles from one time to another, it will probably help out relax the community and the people we are around, and it will get easier with time. But if we start going out and looking like this to each other and no smiles at all, that will not help at all, and that's not good.
Yeah. No, definitely.
We all
Definitely.
need to draw big smiley faces on our masks then, I guess.
No, that's cool. That's another good idea.
Like it. Like it. Fantastic.
Write it down. Write it down. That's a gold idea.
Got our journals here. There we go. Okay. Hey, guys, I want to thank Angela today for coming to the podcast. You know, it was a very momentary lapse of like, oh, we don't have a speaker today. And I get an email and it's like, you want to join? And I have to say, this was a fantastic discussion and really, really, you know, very elaborate, very well presented. Definitely. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I thought when you wrote me, I was like, okay, yeah, why not? I'm not doing anything. I'm not going out. And then you wrote like, are you able? And I was like, oh, I thought I was already. I thought I was the one to be in the podcast. Yeah, of course. But no, I like talking about this. I love talking about it. And I have a lot of stories. So whenever you want, I will be here. And remember, for the ones that have, you can put it down. My username is Tiquete de Ida. In case you want to follow me and read some of my stories or ask me whatever you want about traveling, I will be here for you and all the kids.
I'm going to put a link on the description below. That's tiquetededia.com.
Link down below.
Yeah, link down below.
This is Isabella.
Hey, Isabella. Hello.
Isabella.
We welcomed.
I think you have fun with my sister.
Oh yeah, no, we had a great discussion. I mean, you know, for a podcast to go on for an hour, it means we did excelente. Yeah, very good.
I'm so happy.
Well, thank you also for inviting your sister. I must thank you as well on the podcast. So thank you. So
yeah.
Below tiquetededia.com.co, right?
No, it's tiquetedeida.co, sin el com,
okay,
without the com.
All right,
Tiquetedeida.co.
All right, I'll put that on below. Perfect. So,
yeah.
Bye.
On that note, everyone, we want to thank you for watching the podcast today and thank our lovely guest, Angela. She did a stupendous job, absolutely.
Thank you.
And Ryan, take us out.
Well, you know the drill. I'm Ryan.
And I'm David.
And you?
And this was The Rad Show, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Thank you very
That
much.
makes us.
Bye.